Hi everyone, you're welcome back to my channel. Today I'll be drafting a shoulder to waist basic bodice, and these are the measurements needed. So with me here I have my pattern paper. I'm going to be making use of 18 inches from my shoulder to my waist point. So from here I'll mark this as my shoulder point. Then from my shoulder point I came down by 11 inches from my bust point. Then see, from my shoulder point I came down by 18 inches from my waist point. Now I'm going to use my ruler to rule a straight line on each point I marked out. Please take note that this should be folded into two before drafting. So now let's continue. After doing this, I'm going to label this first line as my shoulder line, the second line as my bust line, the third line as my waist line. Now my shoulder measurement is 16. I'm going to be dividing it by 2. So divide the shoulder measurement by 2. Whatever you have there, that is what you place on your shoulder line. Mine, I have 8 inches. So I'm going to place it on my shoulder line and mark it out. Now I'm going to be using 3 inches for the wideness of the neck, then 3 inches for the deepness of the neck. Now I'm going to use my curve rule to connect to both points, just like this. Then from that point I marked my 8 inches. I'm going to come down by 1 inch, and this is for my shoulder slope. Now from that point I marked the 1 inch for my shoulder slope. I'll connect to my shoulder line this way. Now my armhole measurement is 17 inches. I will divide by 2, and I have 8.5 inches. So now I'm going to place my tape from my shoulder slope line down to 8.5 inches. Now I'm going to use my ruler to connect from this my shoulder slope point to that 8.5 inches I marked. So I'll just go ahead and rule a straight line this way, and this will be my chest line. Now the next thing I'm going to be doing is to divide whatever I have on my armhole, which is 8.5 inches, by 2. It will give me 4.25 inches. I'll mark the midpoint there. From that midpoint, I'm going to be coming in by ½ inch. Now I'm going to rule a straight line this way for better understanding. Now what I'm going to be doing is to take my bust measurement that I divided by 4, which gives me 10.25 inches. Now I'll use my curve rule to connect this way, meeting that's my bust measurement. Now after drafting the front armhole part, the next thing I'm going to be doing is to take my nipple to nipple measurement, which is 8 inches. I'm going to be dividing this 8 inches by 2. So I have 4 inches. Now I'm going to place this on my bust line, the 4 inches. I'll mark it there, and then I'll still mark the 4 inches on my waist line this way. Now I'll use my ruler to connect to both 4-inch points I marked. After doing that, from the waistline, I'm going to be using ½ inch for the center front, ½ inch for the side front. Then from the bust line, I'm going to be coming down by 1 inch. From that my dart line, I came down by 1 inch. Now I'll connect from that point. I came down by meeting that half inch I took at the waistline. Then I'll roll straight, connecting both points. Now the next thing I'm going to, this is for my dart intake at the front. The next thing I want is to take my bust measurement, which I already took 10.25 inches at the bust line. Then for the waistline, I divide my waist measurement by 4. I have 9.5 inches. I'm going to be replacing my dart intake of 1 inch there. Now I'll connect both points with my ruler, just like this. After doing that, I'm going to be marking out 1 inch for the side allowance on each line I have on my pattern paper, my waistline, my bust line, my chest line, and then I will connect to each point. So this will be serving as my allowance. I'm just going to be writing this here to indicate this part is for my allowance. Now you can go ahead and actually add ½ inch sewing allowance at the down parts, at the shoulder part, at the armhole part, and the neck part. So this is for my front pattern. I'm going to go ahead and cut this out. Now I'm done cutting the front pattern. I'm going to be holding the front dart just like this. So when you hold the front dart just like this, if you notice, there is now like a room for the bust to actually sit perfectly. So it won't be pressing the bust, because without the dart intake, if you wear your clothes, like, it's going to be pressing the bust part. So that is the reason why the dart intake is necessary. Now I'm going to go ahead and draft the back pattern. So for the back pattern, I already have my pattern paper. From this point, I'll mark as my shoulder point. Then from my shoulder point, I'll mark down to my bust point. From shoulder point, still mark down to your waist point. Now I'm going to roll a straight line on each point I have on my pattern paper. This basic bodice is really necessary. This will help you to actually like draft any type of style you want, to cut any type of style you want. Now this is for my shoulder line, this is for my bust line, and this is for my waistline. The under bust line is not necessarily needed, so that's why I didn't add it. Now I'm going to be taking 1 inch, and this will be for my zipper allowance. You can actually make use of 1.5 inch, but I'm actually making use of 1 inch here. Now I'm going to roll a straight line meeting those points I marked for my zipper allowance on each line I have on my pattern paper, just like this. Now the next thing I'm just going to go ahead and label this part as my zip allowance. Now I will start taking my measurement, my body measurement, from that my zipper allowance line, as you can see from that part. Now I'm going to mark out 8 inches for my shoulder measurement. Remember, I divided 16 inches, which is my actual shoulder measurement, by 2, which gives me 8 inches. Now I'm going to be marking 3 inches for the wideness of the neck. Then for the back part, I'm going to be making use of 1 inch. Remember, the front is 3 inch, the back is 1 inch. Now I'm going to connect both points. Now the next thing I'm going to be doing is to be coming down by 1 inch. From that point, I marked 8 inches for my shoulder measurement. And then I will connect from that point, meeting my shoulder line this way. And this will be for my shoulder slope. Now from that my shoulder slope line, I'm going to come down by 8.5 inches. And this is for my armhole circumference, which I divided by 2. I have 8.5 inches. So that is what I actually placed there. Now I'm going to connect to each point just like this, and then roll a straight line this way. So this will be serving as my chest line. Now I'm going to go ahead and divide what I have there by 2, what I have on my armhole part by 2. I'll get the midpoint. I will not be coming in by ½ inch in the back armhole part. I will not be coming in by ½ inch. Now what I'm going to be doing next is to mark my bust measurement that I divided by 4. I'm going to be giving one part to this place, which is 10¼ inches. So I'm going to connect this point to this point this way. And this is all for the back armhole. Now I'm going to be marking my nipple to nipple measurement, which is 8 inches divided by 2 will give me 4 inches. I'll mark this on my bust line and also on my waistline 4 inches. Now I'm going to connect to both points, but before doing that, from my chest line, this is my chest line, I'm going to be coming down by ½ inch and take it there. Now I will connect, meeting each point with my ruler. The next thing I will do is to take ½ inch for my center back, ½ inch for my side back, in between that straight line I wrote for my nipple to nipple measurement. Now I'm going to connect from that point I marked below my chest line, meeting that ½ inch I took for the dart intake at the waistline, just like this. And this is for my dart intake at the back. Now I'll take my bust measurement, which I already did earlier on, and then I'll take my waist measurement that I divided by 4. I'm going to be adding my 1 inch dart intake, and now I'm going to connect to each point with my ruler. Now after doing that, I'm going to, from the waistline I have from my zipper parts, I'm going to be coming in by ½ inch. Now from that ½ inch I came in by, I'm going to connect it in a slant way, meeting my chest line just like this. Then I'm going to come in also from that my zipper allowance line by ½ inch and then connect it this way, meeting my bust line. And this is it for the zipper part. I'm going to go ahead and mark this out because I'm going to be cutting it out, and this is just to avoid any bulge or any folding at the zipper part. Now this is for my dart intake at the back. I'm just going to go ahead and extend this neck part. Now I'm going to just cut this out. The next thing I will do is to add my allowance. I'm going to add my 1 inch allowance at the side, and then I'll connect with my ruler within each point, and this is for my allowance at the back. So just go ahead and add the ½ inch sewing allowance all around, but remember you have to fold your fabric into 2. Now I'll just go ahead and cut the back part out. Now I'm done cutting the back part. I'm going to be adding the front part of my basic bodice. And this is all for my shoulder to waist basic bodice drafting. So please subscribe, like, share and comment. Thanks for watching.